वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःशुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ षोडशोऽध्यायः। See, after finishing, especially last three chapters, 13, 14 and 15, it was, all the three chapters, they have very well defined what is, the final goal, Brahman, Atma, and also what is the world and what is the individual. In fact, this is the final, in spirituality, one point which one should clearly understand. So, after that, if you come to this 16th chapter, as the name itself indicates, this is Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. So it talks about the various virtues of Daiva and Asura. That means the person with the spiritual knowledge, what are the things you should have. That means our goal is to know that realization of the truth. And this goal of life and the person's way of life, they are closely related. See, when I say goal of life, means that is the final, primary, topmost goal of life. So each, that is the goal and way of life, they influence each other. So one should align and tune the way of life in such a way that it is conducive to the accomplishment of the goal. This particular thing, especially our scriptures, the Veda, they consider it very, very important. So if you see the Veda Purva Bhaga, which is the beginning of the Vedas, the way of life is given, because these two cannot be separated. And the character determines the way of life, which will in turn determine the goal. And the human character divided into several types in different contexts. One type is dominantly Dvesha Pradhana. Dvesha, Raga Dvesha, Dvesha Pradhana. A character in which I dislike most of the things. I have complained almost against everything. It is Dvesha Pradhana. So sort of a cynical character. So Dvesha Pradhana, the character is generally Krodha Pradhana also. And this leads to himsa pradhana character. A person who is highly short-tempered, he is highly volatile. The Shastra class him as Rakshasa Swabhava. So that means Rakshasa. That is Swabhava of Rakshasa. In that Swabhava, then people want to protect themselves from such people. That is Rakshasa Swabhava. And this character is not conducive. That is the Swabhava from which people want to protect themselves. This character is not conducive to spiritual growth. Not only that, this character brings a person spiritually down. The second character is Raga Pradhana. Like Dvesha, it is Raga Pradhana. Even though it is opposite to that, it is also bad in one sense. Here, this Swabhava, which is heavily Raga oriented, that is attachment oriented, it leads to lot of desires, kama. What type of desire? Desire for name, fame, money, possession, position, and merrymaking, all these things you can include. And life is meant for enjoyment, and therefore have no goal. This type of life. This Swabhava, it does not lead to spiritual downfall, but there is no scope for spiritual growth. Because generally these type of people do not consider religion and spirituality is relevant for life. They feel that for earning money and enjoying life, why do we require God? So this is one, of course, extreme of this type of people with Raga Pradhana Swabhava. Then there is one third kind. It is Jnana Pradhana, which considers spiritual knowledge as the goal. That's why this is called Jnana Pradhana. So this Jnanam is the topmost priority for them, and whatever is required for this Jnanam, that also is given top priority. These three Swabhavas, Deva, Asura Swabhava, Rakshasa Swabhava, all these characters are compared to a kind of wealth that a person possesses. All these three people possess their own wealth in the form of these characters. That's why that word sampatti is used. So that's why this character, it's called Sampat. Therefore, the 16th chapter, Krishna wants to talk about the Daivi Sampat otherwise called Daiva Subhava, which is the inner wealth of character. Then the Asuri Swabhava, Sampat, Asura Swabhava. It is the second type of inner wealth or character. See, Krishna wants to Arjuna, if your goal is spiritual knowledge or moksha, the only conducive way is Daiva Swabhava. So, we must understand and try to develop that sort of Daiva Swabhava. See, even though we study spiritual matters and try to understand and do sadhana, the progress is rather generally slow. Even though we understand what is God, what is Atma, what is Brahman, and what all these things we have studied, especially Gita, we might have completed 2 or 3 times. But still, we feel that still there is a lot more to, that means more sadhana has to be done. Sometimes we feel even frustrated that the goal is so far away, even after a few years. The main reason is what is given in the 16th chapter. Those things we don't pay attention, but that is very important. With that type of, that is Swabhava, especially unwanted Swabhava, which we just now saw, some of them, that is the main rather thing which rather obstructs. For example, there is a story of 2 ants, Erumba. See, in maybe a professional shop or somewhere, this ant lives in salt bag, uppu mutta. So it always eats that and then it is happy with that. In another room, there is a bag with sugar, sakkara mutta. So there is another ant which eats that and they live. One day they meet. So then they discuss what they eat and all. Both they say what I eat is excellent. So that sakkara, that sugar, and she said, no, you must try this. Then only you will be able to really see. You have eaten only that particular salt. You must try. Then it brings a small piece of sugar and asks this ant to eat. It eats and then says, no, there is not the same taste. It is it's sort of wondering why this is telling like that, even though they have grown the real sugar and all these things. Next day also same thing happens. Say no, there is not a. Then the ant from sugar bag, it says, open your mouth. Then he finds a piece of salt in that. So that's why you are not able to enjoy the sweetness or taste of sugar. Then it spits out the salt piece, and when that ant tastes the sugar, it's so happy. So similarly, our mind, with so much of other quality, unwanted things, that comes in the way. Only when they are removed, we will be able to really feel the presence of that, the all-pervading presence, what we call, which is our real source, real character. So it is blocked by our other type of, we are accumulated so much of likes and dislikes and all these things. So it has to be slowly removed. Then only we will be able to feel its presence, which is always there. So our job is to remove these things rather than try to understand by so many, scriptures and whether Gita or Upanishads or any of these things. So even though the understanding is that the real, what we call that experience will take place only, it's all happening in the mind. When the mind is filled with other things, it's very difficult to reach that particular state. That's why this 16 chapter. So it lists out what are the another both the type of Daiva Sampat and Asura Sampat. So that we can check where we stand. And it is not, actually it looks, if you read it, especially first three verses, it's a big list with about 25, 26 types of, values. Normally there is a feeling, it's all who will start day-to-day life, there won't be so much of use and that sort of thoughts. Actually, they are not simple as they are not so difficult as it looks. And every one of us will be convinced that that is required. So we will see one by one. It's very interesting. It is not really something which cannot be developed. And most of us will have that. That's why we come to, we have got interest in the spiritual things. So most of us must be having quite a number of this Daiva Sampat. So both 16th and 17th chapter, they deal with the way of life conducive to the spiritual goal. So let us see the first three slokas. Sri Bhagavanuvacha Abhayam Sattva Samsuddhi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Dhanam Tamascha Yajnascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam. So all these three, it's a listing of the various values. Ahimsa Satyam Akrodah Tyagashantirabaysunam Daya Bhuteshvalolutvam Madhavam Hridachapalam. This is two. The third one, Tejakshama Dhrutis Saucham Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadham Daivi Abhijatasya Bharata. So we will just go through each of these values. See, if you actually see one by one, it looks very simple. For example, first three we'll see Abhayam, fearlessness. This is spiritual Abhayam, not the general type of fear which is being talked about here. We'll see that later in detail. Sattva Samsuddhi, mental purity. Samsuddhi, that is purity of the mind. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi, that is steadfastness in Jnana and Yoga. Dhanam, charity. Like that, it is, there are about 26 values which are listed in the three verses. And these are all, mainly we have to understand it, conducive to Vedantic study and Vedantic assimilation also. Study is without this also, it may be possible, but you have to you will get interest only if you have some of these values. And that's why both are important, assimilation and study. Without study, cannot be assimilated. And the reception of knowledge is also very, very important, like assimilation of knowledge. This assimilation and transformation, it takes place slowly. So let us see the list one by one. So in the, I think, 13th chapter, up to 12, from 8 to 12, there is a big list which you have already seen. Amanitvam, Adambitvam, it goes like that. Some of them are repeated here also. So if you take Abhayam, it is self-confidence, courage to continue in spite of obstacles and in spite of being in a, what you call, minority. And there are very few people who will be interested. See, one should have value for the goal. If you have that value, then I would not mind the obstacles. So the size of obstacle will depend upon the value for the goal. So then we will have some method of discovering courage. Automatically the courage will come if you have that much interest and understand the goal very well. Then there is Durga story also. Yeah. When you are so small. So the next virtue which we will see is Sattva Samsuddhi, purity of mind. I'm not going in order, I will come back to other thing which I missed. Purity of mind. Here the word Sattva means Anthakarana. Samsuddhi means purity. That means purity means what? We have to develop those types of thoughts which will keep the mind healthy. Those which are toxic to the mind or mental health, this understanding should be there. Otherwise, the purity of the mind, generally, what we say is when we say purity, our mind, how it becomes impure? We see the world and understand it through the 5 sense organs. So the world, when we experience it, it comes down to 5. In the world means all infinity of things. But when it enters the mind, it is reduced to 5 types. That is according to the 5 sense organs. When the experience goes to the mind, it leaves only 2 types of, we can call it resultants. One is, I like it. Another one is, I don't like it. You can say Sukha and Dukkha. Certain things is really nice, we call it Sukha. Certain experience we don't like, Dukkha. So the mind, if you take the likes and dislikes, it's something like a matrix. There is a big list. It will vary from person to person. In every one of his decisions, it depends on this only. What type of things have been accumulated in the mind. It depends on his character, everything, his aim in life, his approach, everything. So when we say Chitta Suddhi, purity of mind, to remove all these likes and dislikes by understanding it. Forcefully, it is very difficult. Once you start understanding slowly the ultimate goal, when we read the scriptures, some of these likes and dislikes automatically they vanish. We might have, every one of you might have experienced this. Earlier, how you were for 10, 20 years back, and now what type of likes and dislikes you have. So it varies, but it slowly it gets reduced. That we would have, most of you would have felt that attractions and other things would have come down. So this is we call purity of the mind. So it is also not very difficult if you see why each and every virtue we are going through, because it's not so difficult to, you don't have to even develop. Most of us we have to little bit remove the dust and then understand that we do have this sort of purity. Then the next virtue is Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi. See, we should not forget all the time what is the goal or purpose for which the way of life I am following, and what is that purpose? It is spiritual knowledge. And knowledge never happens naturally. Jnana Yoga Vivasthitihi. That means committed pursuit of Jnana Yoga, which includes, we all know, Sravanam, that is consistent and systematic study of Vedantic scriptures, which we have been doing. And for a length of time, certainly under the guidance of a guru, competent teacher. Sravanam, then Mananam, which is reflecting over that and understanding and removing the doubts. Then Nididhyasana, internalizing to such an extent that my life and my knowledge, there is no disparity. What I know and what I am, in this, there is no disparity. So, Vyavasthitihi means commitment. Something like Nishtha, Jnana Yoga, Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. So, this is also Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi. When we have started reading and understanding scripture, these are no automatic. That means we do have a Mananam and also Nididhyasana. So this also in the listing, this is not, we don't have to develop. We do have. Only we have to understand that is about this particular value. Then the Dhamma. Dhamma means control of that is Indriya. Indriya Nigraha. you can say sense control. Voluntarily directing the sense organs, not suppressing the mind, particularly. It's not even control. That word, I don't know how far it is correct. The understanding only. I decide what is good for me, for my spiritual growth, and what is not good for me, with conviction. I myself turn away the sense organs. It is called, you can call it mastery over the sense organs. It is also, if you see, this, it is not really, we do have this, especially after some, years of sadhana. So in the 16th chapter, it is important in this sense. That is, we all understand what we have, our positive point and negative points, if at all it is there. For that only this listing. And so it gives great confidence, especially if you have most of these. So this is Dhammaha. Then next virtue is Yajna. Yajna means generally worship of the God or Lord. Yaj, that if you separate, Yaj means to worship. Yajna means the practice of worship. And there are two forms of worship according to the scriptures. One is the regular ceremonial worship in the form of puja at home, then homa, puja in the temple, etc. These are the regular ceremonial, ritualistic formal worship. There is a second form of worship, which is conversion of all our activities themselves into a form of worship. That is, there is a well-known verse, that is, work is a worship. Work itself is a worship. So it's a change of attitude when you work. And this is called the really, the yajna type of, to convert all activities into yajna. So it's on bhava. Dhara karma yoga attitude. So the change of attitude is yajna. So I look upon every karma as an offering to the Lord. So therefore I am able to do the activities or karmas cheerfully, enthusiastically, wholeheartedly, and sincerely. Whether it is mundane action or the most important action. It can be called as Ishvara Arpana. And any result or consequence, I accept without any resistance. We can call it prasada, the God's prasada. So it's an attitude, prasada bhavana. Iswara Arpana Bhavana with regard to karma, Prasada Bhavana with regard to the karma phalam. This will convert every activity or karma into an yajna. So this is also, see, in fact, it is obvious, and we have understood, and we have been probably, most of us are doing like that only. And even that chanting, Kaya Navacha Manasendrivarira, Vidyartmanava, Prakriti Svabhava, whatever we do by all this, by speech, body, worship, and all these things, they are because of the Prakriti Svabhava, and by everything I dedicate to the Lord. Lord means what? It's all happening, the understanding. Lord means not, they won't be not be understood, it is everywhere. So for that, I am doing. So that is the sort of, attitude with which we, do things as and when it comes. So this is also, in fact, nothing is really so difficult which we have to develop and all. Especially people in the spiritual line, they all have this. See, even lighting the lamp in the house, say, an atmosphere of divinity, chanting the prayers, it will actually insulate the house. Something like serve as, that kavacham against all the negative forces. So, the formal external puja is also a must. And in addition to that, we also require the second type of puja, that is converting every action into worship. In fact, that's why that Kaya Namacha came. When, what is his name? That 9 yogis and Nimi Chakravarti. She asked one of these rishis, I think it is called Kavi, what is Bagavad Dharma? There only this Kaya Namacha he chants. So this is also, it's we can understand it's not something which is special, which you have to develop and all. There is one, then the Swadhyaya, scriptural study. Again, we are doing that almost ourselves, or listening to talks and satsang, attending satsang and all that. Either there are probably 2 types. One we can call Parayana. Parayana means it is nothing but Sabda Avarti. Parayana means recitation. It is also considered to be a sort of kavacham against any type of evils, including materialism. One of the remedy for that is Swadhyaya. Say something like Vishnu Sahasranama. In fact, most of us, we chant. Similarly, Sandhyavadana. Some prayer chanting is must. Sabda Vritti. And there is another type of Swadhyaya, which is dwelling upon the meaning of the scriptures. First is Sabda Pradhana, the second is Artha Pradhana. The first one is simple recitation, even without knowing the meaning. it will bless the home. And this is Swadhyaya. Again, this is also common among spiritual seekers. Then the next virtues, this is a little bit one has to really do introspection on this particular point. This virtue is arjavam. You can call it integrity, uprightness. In Tattvabodha, there are 5 layers are explained. Annamaya, physical body; Pranamaya, the pranic personality; Manomaya, emotional personality; Vijnanamaya, the rational or intellectual personality. All the different layers of personality, which is normally expressed as the thought, the word, and the deed. All of them should be harmonious. So this harmonization, integration of my personality is called arjavam. All this should be in one line. So this is arjavam. Sometimes it is when we talk about what is that truthfulness, we'll discuss this further. Sometimes it may hurt somebody when you are really truthful. We will see that when we come to that particular point. So now we will go to next one, ahimsa. Ahimsa means avoidance of non-violence. At the violence. Okay. At all levels. They call it kayaka, vachika, and manasa level. Really, whatever I give to the world, that alone will get back ultimately. Sometimes, on some occasions, when himsa becomes a necessary evil, after talking repeatedly about hamsa, that is Krishna, in Gita itself it is there. Tasmat udyasva bharata. Udyasya bharata. So, Krishna, it appears that he is contradicting himself. We should remember, ahimsa is a general value, but every value has got an exception, including ahimsa. There are cases when non-violent methods fail miserably. So, which happened in the case of Duryodhana. When non-violent methods fail, and the protection of dharma, for the protection of dharma, the only available means is himsa. Then there is nothing wrong in that is in that's adopting himself. The dharma yuddha will not give you papam. On the other hand, it will give you punyam. Krishna says when he talks about the Mahabharata. That's why he asks Arjuna to do the war after negotiating with these people in all sorts of methods. So this particular one. Himsa, and again, it's not something which is very complicated. Similarly, next one is Satyam. Of course, we all know that it is truthfulness or avoidance of untruth. Because if speaking the truth is going to hurt somebody, then we have to follow the value of ahimsa. And avoid speaking truth. That doesn't mean that we should speak untruth. Avoid speaking untruth. So Satyam is equal to Asatya Varjana. That is, so this listing again, the Satyam also, we know where to speak truth and where to avoid and all these things. Not a very difficult. Next one is Akrodha. It is handling the problem of anger management. Anger is a very powerful emotion which can hurt the angry person himself and of course hurt the people around. So one has to necessarily learn to handle anger. And several methods are there. One of the methods is understanding anger as a form of emotional pain. See, this anger is of course something we know, but many times we are unable to control. It's see this anger. In fact, it is most of the time you don't have time to even think that it comes suddenly. That is the problem. If you know something, see, even while reading the paper, certain news, it really, you get angry. We should know, blood boils, that sort of thing. So there probably we can, if you are ready while opening the newspaper, if you remember, it is possible to control. But when you are interacting with the world and so many things, whatever you do sometimes because of your, that particular situation while driving, but some people, they get really angry if somebody comes other way, this and that. So they do shout. So that's, we do that because it doesn't, it's a sort of expression. And it's a matter of seconds, it subsides after you cross the particular, place. So this is, and of the various things which we have seen, this one requires attention and alertness all the time. So, especially for people who are short-tempered. Otherwise, some of us we don't get so close, that we don't lose temper so easily. For them, it may be simple, but more than I would say 50%, suddenly it comes very difficult to handle. We have to try and be alert. So this akrodha, learning to handle this anger. That's why it's good learning. Then comes Tyaga. Tyaga means You can say sannyasa, renunciation. Anyway, everybody, when you use the word renunciation, sort of they get jittery. And the renunciation also, it's of two kinds. One is the external renunciation. We call it sannyasa ashram. And see, that external, this nowadays I think it's not so much, but it helps. See, the external sannyasa, when you wear that particular, now that kavi vastra and everything, whether you want or not, it makes you behave the way you are expected to. That means it's almost it's a compulsion. With that dress, you can't do this and that. You have to be very careful. And people also, they will be careful. They won't offer you this and that. They know that he is a sannyasi. So further, to that extent, the vastra, kavi vastra helps, no doubt. Yeah. There is another way of telling this tyaga. It's not external renunciation, but inner renunciation, which is, you can call it detachment or vairagya. See, vairagyam itself is what? Freedom from longing. That means totally desirelessness. This is also not very simple. One has to try, at least in when you interact or when you have to take some decision. Vairagyam is very essential. In fact, that is the first vivekam and then vairagyam. If these two are there, all other things will follow. That means what? It's a correct attitude towards my possession, right attitude. The understanding that I really do not possess anything. Everything belongs to the Lord. And the God, out of, we always call a kindness, which is kindness, have provided me with certain possessions. And I am using them. I am supposed to use them and grow. And it has to go back to the Lord only after some time. I can never hold on to anything, including my own body. It's we know. You use everything, a house, car, people around, job, everything you have. But we have to remember that God can take away anything. So the readiness to lose anything is called renunciation. Just because we have lost it or it has no, we shouldn't get perturbed. So that is the point here. Renunciation. This also, it all depends when we are in the pursuit of the, that final goal. And if something happens, it depends. For some people, immediately they understand and then they don't get perturbed. Some people will get perturbed, but after thinking about that, it subsides. So this is how it shows our progress, where we are. So slowly this can be, you can say, developed. If we, for that we must be alert. Oh, I see, I learned this today, and so much I have to pay things, that's all. So there is a big list. I will see one or two more. Because these are all self-explanatory. Shanti means equanimity of the mind, freedom from violent emotional disturbance. This balance of mind we can call as Shanti. Then Tapa. The Tapa also comes in many places in Gita as well as other Upanishads. It's also of many kinds. Deliberately and willfully going through a painful experience for toughening one's physical and mental personality. Voluntarily and deliberately going through some painful experience. Of course, in a controlled way. So that my body and mind will get toughened enough, immunized enough to withstand pain or difficulty. So that is the purpose of this tapas. Many types of tapas are there, like we call it Bridam. For example, people going to Sabarimala, they, I think, take 40 to 45 days of vow, and they have many these things, and then only afterwards only including they don't wear chapel, that sort of thing, they kind of dress, and even they don't even shave, all sorts of things. They say all these things, this is kind of tapas, and then certainly it helps. For example, another example is starving and fasting. Starving is, we want food, but sometimes it may not be available because of circumstances or so many other problems. That is starving. But this fasting is when we, some of these Ekadasi and all, we voluntarily don't take at least rice and other things. So this voluntary suffering is also the kind of tapas. Okay. Okay. Almost over. So there are some more which we will continue in the next satsang. Here, what we have to understand really is, even though the listing is big, nothing is beyond our understanding or following it. Otherwise, if you see the list, it will be puzzling. Many of them are quite obvious for normal persons. Even with reference to your job and other things, we can follow most of the things. So in fact, I see from that point of view, otherwise, this thing and the further, this thing dividing into Daiva and Asura Sampatti, Sampath and all, it's, we can really understand which is Daiva, which is Asura Sampath. And so this is a sort of a checklist just to see where we stand. We will anyway go through the remaining lessons. Some are very nice to learn. So with this, now we stop this satsang.